Dear students, after studying this module, you shall be able to gain an insight about the oligopoly market structure. You shall also be able to understand the determination of stable equilibrium in the classical duopoly models of Cournot and Bertrand. You shall also be able to comprehend the Stackelberg's duopoly model of sophisticated behavior, which is an extension of the Cournot model. So, let us first understand about the concept of oligopoly market structure. Oligopoly is a market structure in which only a few firms compete with one another and entry by new firms is impeded. The product that the firms produce may be homogeneous, as in the case of steel, or differentiated, as with automobiles. Oligopoly is a prevalent form of market structure. Examples of oligopolistic industries include automobiles, steel, aluminum, petrochemicals, electrical equipment and computers. If there are two sellers in the market, it is called a situation of duopoly. Such a market structure is characterized by the following unique features. First, since there are few rival firms, the behavior of the firms is mutually interdependent and strategic. This implies that the action of one influences the actions of others. The price and output policy of a firm will affect the price and quantity sold by other firms. Second, advertising is a powerful instrument in the hands of an oligopolist. A firm can take up aggressive advertising with the intention of capturing a large part of rivals' market. Third, oligopoly has few firms dominating the market. These firms produce products that may be homogeneous or differentiated and also undertake measures to restrict entry of new firms. Now, because of the high degree of interdependency among oligopolistic firms, diverse behavioral patterns may emerge. The firms may collude with one another or with each other and jointly agree to set prices and quantities that maximize the sum of their profits. This sort of behavior is called collusive behavior. Another form of interaction is when the firms compete with each other in one form or the other. Such a behavior is described as non-collusive behavior. Based on different behavioral assumptions, there are a variety of collusive and non-collusive models of oligopoly. Some of the non-collusive models include Bertrand's model, Cournot's model, Stackelberg's model, Chamberlain's model and Paul Sweege's model, whereas price leadership, cartels are some of the collusive models. The present and subsequent modules will focus on non-collusive models of oligopoly. In this module, we will restrict ourselves to the case of two firms, which is duopoly. The duopoly case allows us to capture many of the important features of firms engaged in strategic interaction without the notational complications involved in models with a larger number of firms. Cournot model is an oligopoly model in which firms produce a homogeneous good. Each firm treats the output of its competitors as fixed and all firms decide simultaneously how much to produce. Consider a simple model of a duopoly first developed by Augustin Cournot. Suppose there are two firms, each owning a spring of mineral water. It is assumed that it is produced at zero costs. Further, the firms sell their output in a market with a straight line demand curve. Each firm acts on the assumption that its competitors will not change its output and decides its own output so as to maximize profit. Let us understand using a diagram. Assuming that firm A is the first to start producing and selling mineral water. As illustrated in diagram, this firm will produce quantity A at price P where profits are at a maximum, because at this point marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue is equal to 0. The elasticity of market demand at this level of output is equal to unity, and the total revenue of the firm is at a maximum. With the 0 costs, maximum revenue implies maximum profits. Now firm B assumes that A will keep its output fixed at OA, and hence considers that its own demand curve is CD. It is evident that firm B will produce half the quantity AD, because at this level of output AB and at price P, its revenue and profit, that is B's profit and revenue, is at a maximum. Therefore, B's output is 1 by 4, which is equal to half into half of the total market. Firm A, faced with this situation, assumes that firm B will retain his quantity constant in the next period. So he will produce 1/2 of the market which is not supplied by B. Therefore, A will in the next period produce half of the remaining, which is half into 1 minus 1 by 4 is equal to 3 by 8 of the total market. This action-reaction pattern continues, and eventually equilibrium is reached, in which each firm produces 1/3 of the total market. Each firm maximizes its profit in each period, but the industry profits are not maximized. That is, the firms would have higher joint profits if they recognize their interdependence. This would lead them to act as a monopolist, producing 1/2 of the total market output, selling it at profit maximizing price P, and sharing the market. The Cournot solution is stable. Each firm supplies 1/3 of the market at a common price which is lower than the monopoly price, but above the pure competitive price, which is 0 in this case of costless production. It can be shown that if there are 3 firms in the industry, each will produce 1/4 of the market, and all of them together will supply 3/4 of the entire market demand OD. And in general, if there are n firms in the industry, each will provide 1 by n plus 1th of the market, and the industry output would be n upon n plus 1 by 1. The assumption of costless production in Cournot model is, however, unrealistic. The reaction curves approach allows the relaxation of the assumption of identical costs and identical demands without impairing the validity of the model. Now, this can be explained by considering a case of 2 firms producing a homogeneous good. Each firm must decide how much to produce, and the 2 firms make their decisions simultaneously. Based on the Cournot assumption, each firm treats the output level of its competitor as fixed when deciding how much to produce. Suppose firm A thinks that firm B will produce nothing. In that case, firm A's demand curve is the market demand curve given by D1. The corresponding marginal revenue curve is MR1. Assume that markets or the firm's A's marginal cost MC1 is constant. As shown in the figure, firm A's profit maximizing output is 50 units, the point where MR1 intersects MC1. So, if firm B produces 0, firm A should produce 50. Now, suppose firm A thinks that firm B will produce 50 units. Then firm A's demand curve is D2, and the corresponding marginal revenue curve is MR2. Firm A's profit maximizing output is now 25 units, where MR2 is equal to MC1. Suppose firm A thinks that firm B will produce 75 units. Then firm A's demand curve is D3, and the corresponding marginal revenue curve is MR3. Firm A's profit maximizing output is now 12.5 units, where MR3 is equal to MC1. Finally, suppose firm A thinks. Thus, firm A's profit maximizing output is a decreasing schedule of how much it thinks firm B will produce. This schedule is firm A's reaction curve denoted by QA star QB. The same can be shown for firm B, that is, we can determine firm B's profit maximizing output given various assumptions about how much firm A will produce. This gives the reaction curve for firm B denoted by QB star QA. That tells about how much the quantity should be produced by the firm given the output of its competitor. In equilibrium, each firm sets output according to its own reaction curve. The equilibrium output levels are therefore found at the intersection of the two reaction curves. This resulting set of output levels is called the Cournot equilibrium. In the Cournot model, it is assumed that the oligopolistic firms compete by setting quantities. In many oligopolistic industries, however, competition occurs along with price dimensions. For example, automobile companies view price as a key strategic variable, and each one chooses its price with its competitors in mind. Price competition in an oligopolistic industry can be studied with the help of Bertrand model. The Bertrand model was developed by Joseph Bertrand. Like the Cournot model, it applies to firms that produce the same homogeneous good and make their decisions simultaneously. In this case, however, the firms choose prices instead of quantities. Thus, each firm is faced by the same market demand and aims at maximization of its own profit on the assumption that the price of the competitor will remain constant. The model can be presented using reaction functions of the duopolists. In Bertrand model, the reaction curves are derived from isoprofit maps, which are convex to the axis measuring the prices of the duopolists. Each isoprofit curve for firm A shows the same level of profit which would accrue to A from various levels of prices charged by this firm and its rival. The isoprofit curve for A is convex to its price axis PA. This shape implies that firm A must lower its price up to a certain level, that is at point E, to meet the cutting off price of its competitor in order to maintain the level of its profits at pi A2. However, after that price level has been reached, and if B continues to cut its price, or firm A will be unable to retain its profits, even if it keeps its own price unchanged at PAE. If firm B cuts its price at PB, firm A will find itself at a lower isoprofit curve, that is pi A1, which shows lower profits. Clearly, the lower the isoprofit curve, the lower the level of profits. Thus, for any price charged by firm B, there will be a unique price of firm A which maximizes the latter's profit. This unique profit maximizing price is determined at the lowest point on the highest attainable isoprofit curve of A. The minimum points of the isoprofit curve lies to the right of each other, reflecting the fact that as firm A moves to a higher level of profit, it gains some of the customers of B when the latter increases its price, even if the reaction curve of firm B can be derived in a similar way by joining the lowest points of its isoprofits curve, as you can see in the diagram. Bertrand's model leads to a stable equilibrium defined by the point of intersection of two reaction curves. Here, point E denotes a stable equilibrium. Since any departure from it sets in motion forces which will lead back to point E at which the price charged by A and B. Let us now look at another non-collusive model which is known as Stackelberg's duopoly model. This model was developed by Heinrich von Stackelberg and is an extension of Cournot model. It is assumed that one duopolist is sufficiently sophisticated to recognize that his competitor acts on the Cournot assumption. This allows the duopolist to determine the reaction curve of his rival and incorporate it in his own profit function, which he then proceeds to maximize like a monopolist. Firm A is the sophisticated duopolist. It will assume that its rival will act on the basis of its own reaction curve. This permits firm A to choose to set its own output at the level which maximizes its own profit. This is the point A as shown in the diagram, which lies on the lowest possible isoprofit curve of A, denoting the maximum profit A can achieve given the B's reaction curve. Firm A, acting as a monopolist by incorporating B's reaction curve in his profit maximizing calculations, will produce XA, and firm B will react by producing XB according to its reaction curve. The sophisticated duopolist becomes the leader, while the rival firm which acts on the Cournot assumption becomes the follower. Being a leader is rewarding for A because he reaches an isoprofit curve closer to his axis than if he behaves like his rival. The follower is worse off as compared with the Cournot equilibrium, since with this level of output he reaches an isoprofit curve further away from his axis. If B is the sophisticated duopolist, it will choose to produce XB corresponding to point B on A's reaction curve, because this is the largest profit that B can achieve given. Thus, if only one firm is sophisticated, it will emerge as the leader and a stable equilibrium will emerge, since the rival firm will act as a follower. However, if both firms are sophisticated, then both will want to act as leaders because this action yields a greater profit to them. In this case, the market situation becomes unstable. The situation is known as Stackelberg's disequilibrium, and the effect will either be a price war until one of the firms surrenders and agrees to act as follower, or a collusion is reached with both firms attaining higher profits. There are some interesting implications of Stackelberg model. First, it shows that the rivals should recognize their interdependence. By recognizing the other's reactions, each duopolist can reach a higher level of profit for himself. Second, if both firms start recognizing their mutual interdependence, each starts worrying about the rival's profits and the rival's reaction. If each ignores the other, a price war will be inevitable, as a result of which both will be worse off. Third, this model of sophisticated behavior is not applicable in a market in which the firms behave on Bertrand's assumption. In a Bertrand's type model or in a Bertrand's type market, the sophisticated duopolist can do nothing which would increase his own profit and persuade the other to stop price cutting. The most he can do is to keep his own price constant, that is, behave exactly as his opponent expects him to behave. as the opponent expects him to behave. Let us take an example and understand Cournot and Stackelberg model. Assume that the market demand and the costs of duopolists are P equal to 100 minus 0.5 into x1 plus x2. C1 is equal to 5x1. C2 is equal to 0.5 x2 square. The profits of the duopolists are pi 1 equal to Px1 minus C1 equal to 100 minus 0.5 into x1 plus x2 into x1 minus 5x1, which is same as pi 1 equal to 100 x1 minus 0.5 x1 square minus 0.5 x1 x2 minus 5x1. Similarly, pi 2 equal to Px2 minus C2, which is equal to 100 minus 0.5 into x1 plus x2 whole equal to x2 minus 0.5 x2 square. So, pi 2 is equal to 100 x2 minus 0.5 x2 square minus 0.5 x1 x2 minus 0.5 x2 square. Now, collecting these terms together, we have pi 1 equal to 95 x1 minus 0.5 x1 square minus 0.5 x1 x2, which is our equation 1, and pi 2 equal to 100 x2 minus x2 square minus 0.5 x1 x2, this is our equation number 2. For profit maximization under the Cournot assumption, we have derivative of pi 1 with respect to x1 equal to 0, which is equal to 95 minus x1 minus 0.5 x2. Similarly, we obtain d pi 2 upon dx2 equal to 0 is equal to 100 minus 2x2 minus 0.5 x1. The reaction functions are x1 equal to 95 minus 0.5 x2, which is our equation 3, and x2 equal to 50 minus 0.25 x1. This is our equation number 4. Cournot equilibrium is the point of intersection between the two reaction curves. Therefore, this implies substituting 4 into 3 and we get x1 equal to 95 minus 0.5 into 50 minus 0.25 x1. From this we get x1 equal to 80. Similarly, x2 is equal to 50 minus 0.25 into x1, which is equal to 50 minus 0.25 into 80, and we get equal to 30. Therefore, the total output in the market is equal to x, which is equal to x1 plus x2 and is equal to 110. And the market price P is equal to 100 minus 0.5 x, and we get this equal to 45. So, the profits of the duopolists are pi 1 equal to Px1 minus C1, and hence we get 45 into 80 minus 5 into 80 equal to 3200, and profit of the second firm pi 2 is equal to Px2 minus C2 and is equal to 45 into 30 minus 0.5 into 30 square, which is now equal to 900. So, we get the Cournot solution and is x1 equal to 80, x2 equal to 30, therefore, x is equal to 110, P is equal to 45, profits of the first firm pi 1 is equal to 3200 and pi 2 is equal to 900. Let us now look at the Stackelberg solution. Now, it has three situations as follows. Stackelberg's solution with A being the sophisticated leader. In this case, firm A will substitute B's reaction function computed as in 4 and in its own profit function given by 1 and would maximize it. So, pi 1 is equal to Px1 minus C1, which is equal to now 95 into x1 minus 0.5 into x1 square minus 0.5 x1 x2. So, substitute x2 equal to 50 minus 0.25 x1. So, maximize pi 1 equal to 70 x1 minus 0.375 x1 square. First order condition is d pi 1 with respect to dx1 is equal to 0, and we obtain 70 minus 0.75 x1. This yields output x1 equal to 93 into 1 by 3, and profit pi 1 is equal to 70 into x1 minus 0.375 x1 square, and this is equal to 3267. The second order condition for profit maximization is fulfilled. Firm B would be the follower. This is our second situation. It would assume that A would produce 93.33 or 93 into 1 by 3 units. Thus, B substitutes this amount in its reaction function, and we obtain x2 is equal to 50 minus 0.25 x1 is equal to 26 into 2 by 3, and its profit would be pi 2 equal to 100 x2 minus x2 square minus 0.5 x1 x2, and this comes out to be equal to 711.1. The second possibility is where Stackelberg's solution with firm B being the sophisticated leader. In this case, firm B will substitute A's reaction function computed as 3 in its own profit function given as 2, and maximize this profit as a monopolist. Pi 2 in that case is equal to Px2 minus C2 and is equal to 100 x2 minus x2 square minus 0.5 x1 x2. Now, substituting x1 equal to 95 minus 0.5 x2, we get pi 2 equal to 52.5 x2 minus 0.75 x2 square. The first order maximizing condition is d pi 2 with respect to dx2 is equal to 0, and we obtain 52.5 minus 1.5 x2, which yields output x2 equal to 35, and the profit which we obtain pi 2 is equal to 52.5 x2 minus 0.75 x2 square, and on substitution this comes out to be equal to 918.75. The second order condition for profit maximization is fulfilled. The follower is now firm A, which assumes that the rival will keep his quantity at x2 equal to 35 units and calculates its own output by substituting this quantity in its reaction function. So, x1 is equal to 95 minus 0.5 x2 and is equal to 77.5, and its profit is pi 1, which is 95 x1 minus 0.5 x1 square minus 0.5 x1 x2 and is equal to 3003.13. The third situation is where we have Stackelberg's disequilibrium. So, if both firms adopt Stackelberg's sophisticated pattern of behavior, each will examine his profits if he acts as a leader and if he acts as a follower, and will adopt the action that will yield him the greatest profit. Firm A calculates its profit both as a leader and as a follower. So, if A is the leader, his profits are 3267. If A is the follower, his profits are 3003.13. Clearly, firm A will prefer to act as the leader. Similarly, if firm B calculates its profit both as a leader and as a follower, then if firm B is the leader, his profits are 918.75, and if firm B is the follower, his profits are 711.1. Thus, firm B would also choose to act as the leader. Now, with both firms acting in the sophisticated way implied by Stackelberg's behavioral hypothesis, both will want to act as leaders. Now, as they attempt to do so, they find that their expectations about the rival are not fulfilled, and warfare will start unless they decide to come to a collusive agreement. So let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. We have learned that oligopoly is a market structure where only a few firms account for most or all of production. Barriers to entry allow some firms to earn substantial profits. We have also learned that economic decisions involve strategic considerations. Each firm must consider how its actions will affect its rivals and how they are likely to react. In the Cournot model, firms make their output decisions at the same time, each taking the other's output as fixed. In equilibrium, each firm is maximizing its profit given the output of its competitor, so no firm has an incentive to change its output. In the Stackelberg's model, one firm sets its output first. That firm has a strategic advantage and earns a higher profit. The Bertrand model applies to markets in which firms compete by setting price. In equilibrium, each firm maximizes its profit given the price of its competitors and so has no incentive to change price.